lives can please put out these fires. Let's go home to our beds and we'll take down the pyres to save what still can be read. And please just desires to keep happy and fed, and we'll clean up this mess in the morning. Well, it may seem that recordings of partisan hacks can preserve no great fuel for our minds, but their arguments live so much longer, in fact reoccurring to hacks throughout time. When you know that some parts of our lives do not change despite the laws of the land or the year, it might help you decide when you try to arrange to act with a purpose, not react in fear. So burn not our books, leave the scrolls in their racks, even knowing their contents obscene. Iron that you look and control your attacks, heaving glowing coals on people's hard work and dreams. Listen now, people, to you I must plead. Ignore primal fears, please think of our needs. And we'll try to retire and we'll go home instead, building better desires from the words you have read. And then we'll retire and discuss while we're fed, using coals to cook beans and not books. If what you hate are the words that are scratched by the reed, then you still have an option of keys. Don't censor or burn one lone madman's creed, or his legend and fame will increase. If instead you can answer his scrawlings in turn and produce some more reasoned retort, then people will listen and your ideas will have earned their place in the schools and the courts. Well, ideas are born well before the men they impel to destroy or refine what they see. So with me, poor Orwell, abhor the men who compel you to be as they want you to be. In your readings you may learn of people who claim to hold ethics and virtues most just, but they then needed neither to rob and to maim. They said that to be just we must do as we must. So burn not our books, leave the scrolls in their racks, even knowing their contents obscene. Iron that you look and control your attacks, heaving glowing coals on a dead poet's dreams. Please drop your torch and just lend me your ear. I'm armed but with words, you have nothing to fear. Please work to inspire better thinking instead, building better desires from the words you have read. And when you retire and lay in your deathbed, well, you'll have no regrets in the end. When he was a toddling lad, he thought a cactus a toy. When he reached out and grabbed, in his hand it was stabbed, dread terror replacing his joy. But he done of his own free will, he chose of his own free will. When he was tall as a suckling goat, around the cook fire he ran. When his foot twisted down and he fell to the ground, and he burned up and mangled his hand. But he ran of his own free will, he chose of his own free will. Scarce had the feeling returned to his fingers, though mighty a scar did remain. A smooth man sold him balm that would soothe and would calm, but instead caused more damage and pain. But he bought of his own free will, he chose of his own free will. His parents were through with this burdensome boy and sent him to work on a farm, to haul chaff and split logs and feed orange rinds to hogs and keep himself distant from harm. While other boys learned how to add or to spell, the boy toiled and labored all day, learning nothing of books or how wider worlds look. Folks shook their heads and did say he stayed dumb of his own free will. He's dumb of his own free will. When the boy was of age, the farm sent him away to work at a shop for a trade. But no foreman would have an illiterate scab, except a strange man with a spade. He went of his own free will, he chose of his own free will. That night the boy found what the man did for work, crossing through field, turf and hedge, digging up graves for the riches they gave, and the dead couldn't mind they were dead. The next night things went wrong for the boy and the man, sneaking in through the churchyard. Townsmen lay in wait just beyond the back gate and set on them both and quite hard. They stole of their own free will, they were thieves of their own free will. The great hall the next day saw them stand to be judged, not a word said in either's defense. When the judge stood and cried, evil men all must die for such crimes, death is your recompense. You sinned of your own free will, you chose evil of your own free will. Determined to win some cash from all and pawn you and free us from this hellish life of 12-hour shifts and overnights. These young boys that I'm walking with have no experience, they've got no grit. There's nothing keeping them ahead of me. It's a long and it'll be a long time till we meet again. And until then, just remember what I said. It's a long, long walk, and it'll be the longer without you. And remember that I think of you every hour of every day. from across the states, and it's brought me to appreciate the mix of circumstances that brought us here today. Well, the one thing that I notice is most of them, well, they're just kids. They're about to figure out what a mistake they made, 'cause it's a long, long walk, and it'll be a long time till I can stop. But until then, I'll keep marching home to you. Oh, it's a long, long walk, and it'll be the longer without you. And remember that I think of you every minute of every day. Well, I've heard old Pa talk death before when he was burning out traitors in the Major's War. Well, it's one thing to be told a tale and the other to watch them boys that fell. The wardens without grief or doubt give just 3 strikes and then they're out and drag their bleeding corpses off the road. It's a long, long walk and it's getting hard, but I'm still on the way. I'm a man who means the things I say. I'm coming home to you, and it's a long, long walk, and it'll be the longer without you. And remember that I think of you every goddamn second of every day. In a time of far antiquities, the first wizard laid a plan. A game of creativity soon spread throughout the land, of noble knights and hoary shades, of goblin spells and rings, wars to fight for glory made as far as one could think. Build a world inside a deck, no kingdom of your own. To meet with others you respect, a safer place than home. But this game had many moving parts that had to be maintained, and the caretakers with greedy hearts dreamt of riches to be gained. Machines re-geared to print more cards to meet increased demand. Unceasing commands to remand older standards left commanders who could not command. So with cardstock of tissue and clarity issues, spells fizzled and walls turned to dust. Shamans and sages lapsed into rages, seas sizzled, sickles and swords turned to rust. But these were just wizards playing a card game. Who cares if they suffer or fail? Why should they have a space to feel trusted and safe? You can make much more money selling straight through the mail. So let's drive to the Southlands and play in the Great Hall. For the decade those venues survive, until they're deprived of what they need to thrive. Wizards' towers to empower larger halls to serve all. 'Cause magic is not a thing one person owns, or a company, corporate or small. The first wizard denied a crown or a throne. He must know what he did for the better of all. So please, when you work on your quarterly plans, plotting your growth across time. More than just customers, more than just fans. People's well-being and sanity are on the line. Well, people like to pontificate and love to tell me that the moon's a false projection and the world is really flat. Things can't just be good or bad, there's no real way to know. And to say you have an answer is to let your privilege show. Well, the laws of physics stay the same, regardless how we feel. I hope you and I at least can cry, reality is real. Reality is real, reality is real. The stars in the sky are burning gaseous spheres. Math works alright and physics makes it clear that reality is basically real. Sometimes I almost lose my mind when someone tells me that it might be true for me, but for them there are different facts. Because they want it to be that way, well that way then it is. So let's repeat the same old horseshit that was fed to us as kids. Well, our behavior has to change regardless how we feel. I hope you can take a stand and present a strong appeal that reality is real. Reality is real, reality is real. The stars in the sky are burning gaseous spheres. Math works alright and physics makes it clear that reality is basically real. A complex place, there's many questions left to ask. How God or Krishna made us and for what spiritual task? How can we know what came before if none of us were there? We must trust revealed knowledge from a God who truly cares enough to lead our lives with threats of hell inside our heads. Well, I hope that you dodge that trap and come to see instead that reality is real. Reality is real, reality is real. The stars in the sky are burning gaseous spheres. Math works alright and physics makes it clear that reality is practically real. Perhaps you've come across folks who think you can read the stars, or learn about the future with the shuffling of cards, or speak to ancient life forms in amethyst or jade, or let spinal sublimation cure the problems that you've made for your body by not harnessing the boundless flow of ki. Well, I must insist you prove all this before giving up my plea that reality is real. By slavers to be paid in a plan to cause innocence doom. But the child was cunning and resented the scheme, and prayed to the cosmos who spoke in his dreams, told him how to be free and cause his captors doom by breaking the airlocks in each of their rooms. And he hid in the bridge while they decompressed, and left with the travelers that he'd freed from duress. And he soared between comets and planetoids, hurtling through the vacuum of space. He united world governments no matter how paranoid, and provided a future for every sapient race. Thousands of star systems freed by his deeds. By the time he was only 15, he listened to people and cared for their needs, if they were fleshy like him or sentient steam. But every new alien, no matter how odd, held this belief despite creed or God. Time was moving too fast with still too much to do. If things kept drifting apart, well then it had to be argued. Space would expand until things things went cold. Any option to stop it would be desperate and bold. And he soared between comets and planetoids, hurtling through the vacuum of space. He united world governments, no matter how paranoid, and provided a future for every sapient race. So the hero recalled his new friends and old allies in order galactic like never before. Planets and space stations all to be utilized to master reality, stop death at the door. We build the machine the size of a star. All scientists gather, no journey too far. The tasks are complete and we await the machine to bring us oblivion or our eternal dreams. And the hero that gave us the dream and the joys and risk, we accepted all with one voice. And he soared between comets and planetoids, hurtling through the vacuum of space. He united world governments, no matter how paranoid, and provided a future for every sapient both promised we'd wait, while I worked the mines of Perseus 8. As I watched another worker get flayed and dismembered, much to my dismay, that's when I remembered near light speed travel expands local space-time. So 1 year for me is 12 years for you. By the time I'd return to feel the earth's sunshine, you'd be just 2 months shy of 72. I know that you've already realized this. We were both quite young and dim, but I'm mining this plasma and clenching my fist to distract from the mold colonizing my skin. I have less than a quarter of my own DNA. I'm more protozoa than man, and I'm on break from mining, and I had to say, I have to assume this is going according to plan. I feel quite the fool as I left in your name any credit I'd saved, if I live not to claim the pension I'd earned from the toil and grind of fighting off cave bats that feed on the mind, and digging for ore that howls in the gloom. As you carry it back, it whispers and hums, tells you dark tales of mayhem and conquest and doom. But you grow accustomed as you go numb. I know that you've already realized this. I should have read the fine print, but I'm hauling this ore and I'm clenching my fists as tendrils of slime drip down my chin. Bombarded by particles exotic and rare, I've become much more mushroom than man. I complained to the foreman, but he didn't care. I have to assume this is going according to plan. the fruits of my labor without any shame. My hands have no fingers I could point at you. Still I wish I had not put the accounts in both names. Is a thought that still lingers as I dissolve into goo. Locked in an orbit of a typical kind, in as ordinary a system as you'd ever find, is a planet more strange than any mystical lore. But let me recount, for you're new through this shuttle door, and I feel a bit better when I'm not on my own. When you live on this world, it's inexplicably grand, maybe a compound in the water or a salt in the sand. For life on this planet stops time's progression, but you're left with no egress from the planet's possession. So you grow in your wisdom with no way to go home, and you live in erudite life as you converse with the globe that holds you there with no strife. For its gift to you remains, so it's never alone, and you speak of each fact of reality and the mystique of ideas of solipsism and duality. But never can you use your wisdom or skill. The planet holds you there with unbreakable will, part of a menagerie of eternal playthings, there to tell stories, craft artworks, or sing. For a planetary intelligence of staggering breadth, content to leave you there without sickness or death, a companion eternal, a being supreme, your divine benefactor in a near endless dream. Well, you might wonder how I know of such a mythical place, yet I waste away in this station set far into deep space. As a young man I passed up a trip, coordinates locked on a trustworthy ship, but it seemed at the time, despite the bounties it gives, you can't die on Tierra Eterna. Was brillig and the sliding toads did gyre and gimble in the wave. All mimsy were the bora groves and Momrath outgrave. Beware the Jabberwock, my son, the jaws that bite, the claws that catch. Beware the Jub bird and Sean, the frubious Bandersnatch. So he took his vorpal sword in hand. Long time the manxome foe he sought. So rested he by the tum-tum tree and stood a while in thought. As in offish thought he stood, the Jabberwock with eyes of flame came whiffling through the tulgey wood and burbled as he came. 1, 2, 1, 2, and through the vorpal sword went snicker-snack. He left it dead, and with its head he went galumphing back. Oh, hast thou slain the Jabberwock? Come to my arms, my beamish boy. Oh, frabjous day, Kalukale, he chortled in his joy. Was brillig and the sliding toes did Gyron Kimball in the way. All Mimsy were the Bora Groves and Mom Ralph how great. In a city of cowards, a shady man waits, the ladies in powder selling off dates, sweet fruit for the harvest at excellent rates. A man from the mountains looking for gold, the plan hashed by the fountain for treasures of old, artifacts for the harvest by adventurers bold. Head to the bay where privateers rest, a captain to challenge in combat and best, and a crew that wants more than just gold in a chest. And these men have an excellent plan to ascend the dead hills where the steppe nomads dance, and portend what they will from their drug-induced trance. Protect innocence captured to finish a plan by a sinister man who works so he can talk to gods, never dying but dreaming and scheming and trying to bring dust to the land. Run rugged, give all, there's lives on the line. Roads flooded, give stall, but they strive through the brine. A pursuit to the tower, arriving on time. The road madman stands, dagger in hand, but cannot withstand the mountainous man from the mountains who landed and ended the plans to bring old gods and chaos, turn castles to sand. They returned and commanded the gates to be sealed, renew the old deals, give the world time to heal, keep the gates locked and maintain the zeal, for a world still in shock is an excellent meal, for chaos and madness which must be repealed by trial and error and belief in the real. Stuck in your hat, a hammer and sickle that catch light and flash. Well, I can't help but notice the diminutive thing you might wear to display that you're on the left wing. But Lenin wasn't exactly a lover of freedom, and Stalin wasn't great to the poor. The Third International was not the Third Reich, for that Hitler would have to have killed millions more, and kulaks lie buried down in the mass graves, killed by a famine engineered by a man who thought grain would serve better outside the Ukraine. 5 million dead for a new 5-year plan. There's a lot of ideas from the last century that made sense at the time, but now it seems to me solidarity for workers might seem a bit dated if the jobs that they work all become automated. The unions sold out their more radical kin for better treatment from the boss man. They need permission to strike, and on a timeline they must make sure that management approves of the plan, which is not to say we must live without cause or hope, boil our brains with entertainment or dope, living our lives by the legends of yore, escaping the reality that our brains evolved for. We can think, we can learn with our compounded skill. If we can imagine a future worth living, we will rise to the occasion and keep up the fight against our own bias to figure what's right. And if we don't, we'll allow paranoia to win and squander all our limited time. What are you hiding? What is your game? Brain suspended and whole to make space for the group mind. Well, I for one must wholeheartedly doubt that humans already figured politics out in a way that can be written in a few books or tracks. I think living the good life entails constant search for the facts.